Have you ever looked at your water bill in the middle of summer and wanted to cry? Or maybe you have spent hours dragging a heavy, muddy hose around, only to watch your plants wither and die anyway. It is exhausting, right? But what if I told you that the secret to the most beautiful, peaceful, and striking garden in the world involves almost zero water? Today, we are uncovering a forgotten traditional Japanese gardening method that completely defies modern landscaping. We are going to learn how to build a breathtaking outdoor space without constantly relying on the sprinkler. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will want to rip out your thirsty green lawn and try this ancient technique. But let me ask you a provocative question right now. Do you truly believe a garden needs actual water to feel alive and lush? I know many of you will say yes, so I challenge you to argue with me in the comments down below. Let us see if I can change your mind. To truly understand this brilliant method, we need to travel back in time to 15th century Japan. During this period, Zen Buddhist monks were building temples in places where running water was scarce. They needed peaceful, quiet spaces for deep meditation, but they did not have the resources to maintain lush, thirsty flower beds. So they invented something revolutionary. It is called Karesansui, which translates directly to dry landscape. Instead of forcing nature to bend to their will by pumping in endless gallons of water, they used natural elements that survive and thrive on their own. They used the landscape to symbolize the ocean, rivers, and mountains without using a single drop of actual water. This was not just a gardening choice. It was a strict philosophy of doing more with less. Fast forward to today, with global droughts and rising water costs, this forgotten historical method is suddenly the most brilliant practical solution for any homeowner. Let us start with the most famous and visually striking element of this forgotten method. I am talking about the brilliant illusion of water. When you look at a traditional Japanese dry garden, you immediately see flowing rivers and crashing ocean waves. But there is not a single drop of actual liquid there. Instead, the creators used fine gravel and sand to build this illusion. By carefully raking this gravel into very specific flowing patterns, the ancient gardeners created the exact visual feeling of a moving stream. It is a stunning visual trick that tricks your brain into feeling cool and refreshed. A great example of this is creating tight, circular ripple patterns around a single large stone. It looks exactly like a water drop just hit the calm surface of a pond. Now, let us bust a common myth right here. Many people think you can just use ordinary sandbox sand from the local hardware store to do this. That is a huge mistake. True Japanese dry gardens use crushed granite or very specific angular gravel. Why is that? Because round sand grains simply blow away in the wind and lose their shape immediately. Angular gravel actually locks together like puzzle pieces. It holds those beautiful wave patterns for weeks, even through heavy winds and light rain. It is completely dry, requires absolutely zero watering, and looks incredibly peaceful. Now that we have our dry ocean, we need some islands. This brings us to the immense power of rocks in Japanese landscaping. In Western gardens, we usually focus on blooming flowers to create a focal point. But flowers require massive amounts of water and constant feeding. In the dry Japanese method, rocks and boulders are the true stars of the show. They act as mountains, islands, or even wandering animals. The placement of a rock is a highly respected art form. For example, placing a tall, jagged rock vertically in the center of your gravel sea instantly creates the look of a distant, majestic mountain peak, like Mount Fuji. The best part? A rock never wilts. It never needs fertilizer, and it absolutely never needs a drink of water. It provides permanent, year-round beauty. When choosing rocks, the secret is to bury the bottom third of the stone into the ground. This gives the illusion that the rock is a natural part of the earth, jutting out from deep below rather than just a decoration dropped on top of the dirt. By using stones of different colors and textures, you create dramatic shadows and highlights. It brings a powerful, grounding energy to your yard, completely bypassing the need for a sprinkler system. But wait, you might be thinking, a garden cannot just be rocks and gravel. We need some green, right? You are absolutely right. And this is where moss becomes the ultimate substitute for a thirsty grass lawn. While a traditional grass lawn requires thousands of gallons of water every summer to stay green, moss is a fascinating alternative. In traditional Japanese gardens, moss is encouraged to grow on stones, under trees, and along the edges of the gravel rivers. It creates a lush, velvet carpet that looks incredibly rich and vibrant. Here is an amazing example. Think of the famous moss temple in Kyoto, which features over 100 different types of moss. It looks like a glowing green fairy tale forest. The secret here is that moss does not have deep roots that suck up groundwater. Instead, it absorbs moisture directly from the air and morning dew. If you place rocks strategically to create small pockets of shade, the moss will thrive there with almost no extra watering from you. Let us shatter another myth while we are at it. Many homeowners treat moss like a weed and try to poison it. But in this forgotten method, moss is the highest prize. It traps humidity, cools the ground, and provides that rich green color we all crave, all while keeping your water bill basically at zero. Of course, we still want a few actual plants and trees to give the garden height and structure. The Japanese solved the water problem by strictly using drought-tolerant native plants that are built for survival. Instead of planting exotic, tropical flowers that demand daily watering, this method relies on hardy species like the Japanese black pine, deep-rooted maples, and tough azaleas. These plants have adapted over thousands of years to survive on natural rainfall alone. A perfect illustration of this is the pine tree. Pine trees have incredibly deep tap roots that search for natural moisture deep underground. Once they are established, you almost never have to water them. The Japanese gardening secret is not about letting plants grow wild, though. It is about careful pruning. By pruning a pine tree to look wind-blown and ancient, you create a dramatic, living sculpture. This selective pruning actually reduces the amount of leaves the tree has to support, which in turn drastically reduces the amount of water the tree needs to survive. So you get a stunning, artistic tree that basically takes care of itself. It is a brilliant combination of artistic vision and sheer botanical survival. Here is a concept that is going to completely blow your mind, especially if you are used to Western gardening styles. It is the concept of Ma, which translates to negative space. In Western cultures, if we see an empty patch of dirt, Our first instinct is to immediately run to the garden center, buy 5 bushes, and cram them into that space. We think a garden must be packed to the brim to be beautiful. But the Japanese dry garden method embraces emptiness. Negative space is treated as a physical design element. By deliberately leaving large areas of your yard completely empty, covered only in smooth raked gravel, you force the eye to appreciate the few rocks and plants that are actually there. Imagine a beautiful painting. If the canvas is entirely covered in chaotic colors, you do not know where to look. But a single stroke of ink on white paper is breathtaking. The same goes for your yard. By adopting this principle of negative space, you are magically solving your water problem. Less plants physically means less water required. You are saving money and resources not by sacrificing beauty, but by elevating the elegance of the few elements you choose to showcase. Let us talk about another genius trick called shake, or borrowed scenery. If you have a small backyard and you want it to feel massive and lush, your first thought might be to plant a ton of massive bushes along the fence. But remember, more bushes equal more watering. The Japanese masters figured out a way to make a garden look infinitely larger without planting a single extra seed. They simply borrowed the landscape outside their property lines. For example, if your neighbor has a massive, beautiful oak tree, or if there is a distant hill visible from your yard, you design your dry garden to frame that view. You might place your stones or prune your small pine tree so that it perfectly aligns with the neighbor's tree in the background. Suddenly, your small, dry rock garden feels like it stretches all the way to the horizon. You get the visual benefit of a massive green landscape, but your neighbor is the one paying the water bill for that giant tree. It is the ultimate legal life hack for landscaping. You incorporate the surrounding nature into your design, expanding your space mentally while keeping your actual physical footprint incredibly low maintenance and dry. Even in a garden designed to survive drought, retaining whatever tiny bit of natural moisture you get is absolutely crucial. This brings us to the art of mulching, but not the way you are thinking. When I say mulch, you probably imagine those bags of smelly, dyed red wood chips that fade after one season. Let us completely forget about that myth. Wood chips absorb water and often steal it from the soil before it reaches the plant roots. In traditional Japanese dry gardening, they use stones, pebbles, and gravel as their mulch. This is incredibly smart. Imagine placing a layer of smooth river stones around the base of your native plants. These stones block the harsh summer sun from hitting the soil directly. This drastically lowers the soil temperature and stops evaporation dead in its tracks. When it does naturally rain, the water slips right past the stones and goes deep into the earth. The stones then act like a heavy blanket, locking that moisture underground where the roots need it. Plus, stone mulch never rots, never needs to be replaced, and bugs hate living in it. It is a permanent, beautiful solution that drastically cuts down the need for supplemental watering. Another secret weapon in this forgotten method is the masterful use of microclimates and shadow play. The ancient gardeners understood that the sun is the ultimate enemy of a dry landscape. To combat this, they used the structural elements of the garden to create tiny, cool zones. By placing a large boulder at a specific angle, You can cast a long, cooling shadow over a section of the ground during the hottest part of the afternoon. This shadow lowers the temperature by several degrees. A perfect example of this is planting a small, delicate fern directly behind a massive, rough stone. The stone acts as a shield against the blistering 2 o'clock sun and blocks drying winds. In that tiny patch of shade, the soil stays damp much longer from the morning dew. You are essentially creating a custom climate for that specific plant. This allows you to grow plants that might otherwise struggle in a dry environment without having to run a hose out to them. It is all about working smarter, not harder. You let the rocks and the architecture do the heavy lifting of protecting the soil, making your entire landscape far more resilient to drought. Now, let us talk about the actual work involved, because this is where the magic really happens. We all know that maintaining a traditional lawn is pure, exhausting labor. Mowing, edging, fertilizing, and endlessly watering. It feels like a chore. The Japanese dry garden completely flips this script. The maintenance here is not physical labor. It is active meditation. Instead of firing up a noisy, gas-guzzling lawn mower, you take a wooden rake and gently redraw the lines in your gravel. This process is meant to calm your mind and focus your thoughts. Imagine spending just 15 minutes on a Sunday morning, quietly raking smooth patterns around your stones while listening to the birds. There is no heavy lifting, no sweat, and absolutely no muddy hoses to roll up. It transforms yard work from a hated weekend chore into a peaceful, stress-relieving ritual. You are actively interacting with your outdoor space in a way that heals your mind while requiring 0 gallons of water. It is a profound shift in how we view our relationship with our homes. The garden takes care of your mental health, and you take care of its beauty, all without wasting a precious drop of water. Finally, let us look at how you can realistically adapt this ancient wisdom to your very modern suburban backyard today. You do not need to be a Zen monk living in a temple to use this method. This is where traditional Japanese gardening meets modern xeriscaping. Xeriscaping is a modern term for landscaping designed specifically for areas that are susceptible to drought. You can start small. A perfect example is ripping out that useless patch of grass in your front yard that always dies in July anyway. Replace it with a border of dark river rocks, fill the center with light-colored angular gravel, and place 3 large, interesting stones in an asymmetrical triangle. Plant 1 hardy, drought-resistant pine tree nearby. Instantly, you have elevated the curb appeal of your house to look like a high-end designer gallery. Your neighbors will be totally jealous of how clean and modern it looks, while they are out there sweating and paying huge water bills. You are taking a 700-year-old forgotten secret and using it to solve a very modern 21st century problem. It is stylish, it is incredibly eco-friendly, and it gives you your weekends back. And there you have it, the ultimate plot twist in landscaping. You really do not need a hose, a sprinkler system, or an expensive water bill to have the most breathtaking yard in your neighborhood. By embracing the forgotten Japanese secrets of dry gravel rivers, the silent power of stones, native plants, and the beauty of empty space, you can create a stunning masterpiece that basically survives on its own. We have uncovered how a 14th century meditation technique is actually the perfect solution for modern-day droughts and busy lives. It is all about working with nature instead of constantly fighting against it. Thank you so much for watching and exploring this amazing piece of history with me today. If you found this ancient method as fascinating as I do, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and share it with a friend who is tired of mowing their lawn. Now, I want to hear from you. Which specific part of your yard would you transform into a beautiful, waterless Zen garden? Let us get a discussion going in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.